Hey guys, Barrett here. Welcome back to another video. Today we're talking about some mistakes you're probably making if you're trying to fix your own pickleball game. These things come up quite a bit with me personally as well. So hopefully these tips will help you if you decide that, hey, you know what? I think it's time to fix a thing or two. So stay tuned, here we go. It can be very frustrating to not understand what's going on with your game if you're making a series of mistakes or if there's a couple of patterns that are popping up that are worrying you, like if you keep popping up your third or something, it can be very, very frustrating, especially if you don't understand what's going on. So when people go out on this journey and they begin to fix things on their own, there's a couple of major things that they run into, and that's what I want to talk about in this video. So let me take you out to the courts to talk about the first one. Okay, tip number one, starting off here, be careful for the Band-Aid fixes. Or in other words, be careful about trying to solve problems from a symptoms perspective and not a disease perspective. As an example, if I'm waking up with headaches every single morning and I'm just taking an Advil to get rid of the headache, although that may make the symptoms feel better, there's clearly something going on with me that's causing me to have headaches every day. The same thing works with pickleball. Try to avoid those quick and easy solutions that don't address the fundamental problem. One area where this comes up a lot is when people serve. If they start to serve balls out, they'll say, okay, let's just take a few step backs and then serve. And although, yeah, that will probably solve the problem in the moment, the reason why you're serving balls out is probably because of something with your swing, your paddle face is open, maybe you're not judging the wind correctly or what have you. So it's very important that when it comes to figuring out what's going on with you, you have to get to the core issue, core fundamental problem. And I know that can be difficult, but it's very, very important. Now, there is no better way to figure out what the fundamental core truth is about your game than having a mirror right behind you, or in other words, a camera. A big mistake that people make when it comes to fixing their own game, especially when it comes to technique and on more on like the swing side of things, changing their swing or changing how they swing or whatever, is not having an actual camera to show them what's going on. We have this thing as humans where we normalize stuff, right? If you experience something for long enough, you normalize it and you just think it's just a typical thing, Like I remember when I was a kid, I grew up in Texas. I remember when I was a kid, I would meet other kids who were from way up north, and snow to them is just like another thing. To me, it's like the most amazing thing in the world because you normalize it over time. The same thing happens with physical motions, especially when it comes to a swing. You may think you're changing your swing, but there is no better way to see what the truth is than the camera. If you're going to make changes with your swing, make sure you get before and after shots, compare them so you can actually see what's going on and make sure you're actually making the change. It can be very tempting just to think that you're making a swing change, but in reality, you may not be. One thing that can really help when it comes to making swing changes, just as kind of a side tip here, is that it's very likely to feel awkward if you're making a significant change. If it doesn't feel awkward, that probably means that you're not changing. Tip number 3 here has to do with more of the social side of pickleball. So oftentimes when you try to fix your game in complete isolation without any outside influence at all, you can find yourself in a pretty rough spot. I have found over time that whenever I'm personally having trouble with something, I will either reach out to someone or I'll watch a video of someone hitting a shot or I'll get someone's opinion on it. I very rarely fix things or learn new things in complete isolation. Pickleball is a very social sport, and there's a lot of give and take in this world. So if you're going at it alone, just be careful of that. Sometimes it can be very useful to get another person's opinion. Even if you post a video publicly, like say to Pickleball Forum or whatever, it can be very useful to get those opinions. The camera is helpful, but when you get someone's opinion of what they see on that camera, that can even be more helpful. Also, be open to criticism. This is a tough one. And I get it. I really do get it. But the more open you are to being criticized about your technique or your swing or whatever, the more likely you are to really learn the good stuff in pickleball. But tip number 4 here, be careful about following advice to the absolute extreme. As a content creator myself, I have to be careful about the advice that I give people. I have to be very careful about saying things like, you always do this or you never do that. Because the extreme cases, I mean, you can say never all day, but sometimes that's wrong. So when it comes to taking other people's advice, it's very important to let it in, let the advice in, but then sit on it for a while, consider it, and don't just take it for gospel. Because what works for them may not work for you. This is one of the big reasons why I focus on first principles when it comes to my teaching, especially when this camera is in front of me. I focus on the first principles, physics, things like that, so that then you can take that principle and mold it and craft it into your own shot based on your own abilities, your age, your body, and so on, your experience, things of that nature. So when you're taking advice from people, either myself or other content creators or whoever, make sure that you're trying to extract the principle of the idea. That way you can take that principle and again, craft it based on your own preferences. So guys, those are 4 tips on how to help you fix your own game. If you're in a frustrating spot, I get it. I really do understand. We've all been there, but make sure you don't fall into some of these traps because it can lead you to a really, really bad place if you get too hooked on it, especially when it comes to the Band-Aid thing. So I hope that was helpful. If you like, go to pickleballkitchen.com. Got a bunch of stuff on there. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I'll see you next time.